Welcome to the show, everyone. Andrew Moon, Orange Nomad, coming to you live from the Orange Nomad studios right here in Columbus, Ohio. Thanks again for sharing your screen with me, sharing your earbuds with me for another week. Pop that in the chat. Let me know that you can hear me okay. We'll get all that technical geek stuff out of the way, first of all. And let me know where you're tuning in from, where you're watching from. It looks like we've got guests from around the globe again. So super happy about that. We got some heavy hitters on the broadcast this week. We've got, looks like we've got Matt Solomon coming to us as well from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Matt. Glad to have you on the show this week. Looks like we also have Dan Tomaszewski on the screen. It's going to show his LinkedIn user, so sorry, Dan. You must have yourself blocked or ghosted or something on there, so I can't pop your face up on the screen, man. But again, welcome to the show. If you're tuning in for the first time with us, for the very first time, I just want to welcome you to the Do What Is Necessary live stream. And I'm super excited to have some repeat guests on the show again this week. Robert Gibbons joining us from the UK. Welcome, Robert. Super happy to have you on the show this week. Super excited that we have a topic that is relevant for, I think it's safe to say it's pretty relevant for every one of our users. Thanks for letting me know, a few of you, that you can hear me and see me okay. But work from home, I mean, this has been one of those weird years, to say the least. And work from home has come front and center. And that's really what we're here to talk about today, is the work from home movement and what it means for employers, what it means for employees. And I think they have the unique opportunity if you are a managed IT service provider. And that's really what the crux of the show is going to be about today. So looks like we've had a few more that have joined us. Let me know where in the world you are tuning in from and that you can hear me okay before we invite our guest on. Again, this is the Do What Is Necessary live stream. We come to you live every week here on LinkedIn. All things related: entrepreneurship, technology, work-life alignment, leadership. It's a show dedicated to doing what is necessary for you. Doing what is necessary for you to succeed in business. Doing what is necessary for you to succeed in life. And again, this is a show dedicated to the pushing aside the hustle and grind mentality that is out there, that permeates every nuance of media. And this is a show about doing what is absolutely necessary for you. Because what's necessary for you is not necessary for me or the next guy, but it's about creating a calm life, a meaningful life for you. And this week we are here to talk about a very important topic, and it's a topic that is not going away anytime soon. So yeah, thanks. This is Corona Cut, I think, number 9 or 10. I don't know. I lost track, Robert. But again, let's just read a few stats before we welcome our guest on this week. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, only 29% of Americans were able to work from home before COVID. But according to Buffer, 99% of workers would choose to work remotely if they could, for at least part of the time or the rest of their careers. And today, when most employees are left with no other choice but to work from home, as well as their bosses are starting to notice the multiple concerns and complications that remote life brings. So I thought that what I would do is bring on a guest that is talking and educating and is a complete go-giver. And I wanted to bring him on the show to talk about the good, the bad, the ugly, and the opportunity that is there, especially for managed IT service providers. So before I welcome Corey on, let me know if you are working from home still, if you've gone back to the office, or if you're still working from home and it's going to be a permanent work from home scenario for you. Let me know in the comments. So without further ado, let me welcome our guest on the show this week. Let me flip screens here and welcome my guest, Corey Munson. He is a cybersecurity commentator, and I was able to meet through the serendipitous nature of COVID through LinkedIn. Corey and I actually connected. We've had multiple conversations since And one of the things I noticed about Corey that is he's all about education and giving back. And he is the perfect person that I think to bring on the show this week. So welcome to the show, Corey. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this week. So
you got it. Thanks for having me on, Andrew.
Awesome. So let me know that you can hear Corey okay and that everything is sounding good. The video is coming in good. That way we make sure any technical stuff, again, being the geek that I am, I want to make sure all this stuff is as perfect as possible for those of you that are tuning in this week. So first off, let me ask you, Corey, how did you get into IT? I noticed on your LinkedIn profile, your roots go all the way back to Gateway. And I remember Gateway Computers. So tell us a little bit about how your journey into the technical space.
Sure. Well, let me just get this out of the way, Andrew, that I am a proud owner of an orange pair of Beats, just like you, and I'm sorry I didn't wear them today, but those are really cool. Thanks. But my IT journey really, like you said, goes back to Gateway. And so for those of us that are old enough to remember when PCs were delivered to your house in a Holstein spotted box, I was part of that organization. Our current CEO of PCmatic, the company I work for now, was a senior vice president of Gateway, and he was a real driving force behind the success of Gateway, and I got to be part of his team. But after leaving Gateway, kind of floated around a while and then came on board with PCmatic. So I was right there in the middle of the big PC boom when it was Gateway and Dell kind of toe-to-toe, and then spent the last 15 years really working with the consumer side of our business, which grew beyond our wildest expectations. But now the fastest growing segment of our business is our work with MSP partners all over the country. So spending a lot of time talking to them about what they're doing to try to deliver better cybersecurity.
Awesome. So let's talk about that. Again, we just want to welcome a couple people that have joined the show, said they can hear us all right. Pesach, I believe, is joining us from the Middle East. So again, we got it's probably late at night for him. He's in the second lockdown already. So he's still working from home. He runs an MSP. So it's interesting times. So let's talk about first of all the good that we've seen in work from home. Now, when I had my managed service provider I sold in 2014. That was our goal, is the WFA, work from anywhere mantra, and we had quite a few kind of cutting edge law firms that wanted that. They wanted their ability to have their attorneys, paralegals to be able to work from anywhere. So they were well prepared for this type of scenario. So let's just talk about some of the good that you have seen maybe inside your company, or that you've seen MSPs be able to deliver, or just in general, what good do you think has come from the ability for people to be able to work from home?
Well, I can come at it from two perspectives. One, as someone who's worked from home now for 15 years, all 55 plus employees of our company have always worked from home. So this has been really nothing new for us. It's been more adjusting to what's going on with our partners and our end users out there. But in terms of what it's done for us as a company, I have no hesitation saying that work from home has allowed us to grow into who we are today. Without it, it wouldn't have been possible. Whether you're talking about the ability to recruit and attract some talent, developers, and beyond, to be able to say, we'll cover your internet costs, we'll give you as good a benefit package as you can ever dream of, and you get to work from home. It's allowed us to really attract talent and grow without the added burden of a big headquarters that we're paying for. So just personally speaking, I can tell you it's the best thing I've ever done from a career perspective. It's really allowed me to stay connected to my family and engage with my kids as they were growing up beyond anything I could have done in the usual cubicle world.
Yep.
In terms of what we're seeing from partners, I think the sharp partners out there, and again, I'm talking about the MSP community specifically, are the ones that are identifying this as a new opportunity. That there are a lot of people working from home right now who aren't getting any type of reliable IT support from their employers, and they're going to need help. They're plugging in on personal devices, poorly secured Wi-Fi networks. They need help really locking things down. And I see a lot of really, really good forward-thinking partners that are stepping into that gap.
So I mean, you touched on that was one of the things that I had done from an MSP perspective because is being able to recruit talent. Because we were the same way. I kind of followed the guys from Basecamp. When I read Rework, it really allowed me to rethink what the traditional MSP model needs to look like. And we went completely virtual at that point. But it allowed us to recruit talent engineers from anywhere. And I think that's the amazing thing. I mean, this was 7 or 8 years ago, but I think it's even more now where it's accepted. The technology's come way farther than it was 7 or 8 years ago for people to be able to do that. But I think it just flips the traditional model of what the IT provider looks like. So what types of things do you see, kind of your forward-thinking MSPs doing, and what types of services do you see them providing that maybe weren't there 6 months ago?
I've talked to several of them, and I've been encouraging this because I really definitely see it as a need. And some of the internal research we're doing backs this up. Is the MSPs that can approach their customers, have a conversation about what that customer is going to do long term. What is their business plan as it relates to their employees? Are they going to stay home? Are they coming back to the office? And are you prepared to deliver the service they need to support that? I think we all went through this triage phase, right? Of let's get everybody home. Let's make sure they've got a device to plug into. Security maybe is an afterthought. Now it's this coming to terms with, is this longer term than what we originally thought? And what security holes are left in the wake of this real fast mass migration to work from home? It's the MSPs that are stepping in to help identify what those security holes are now and put together a comprehensive approach for these, in many cases, small and medium-sized business owners to be able to address this. If those that are able to package this up from implementation to policy to the appropriate hardware, those are the guys that are going to win here, because these small and medium-sized business owners are worried about continuity at this point. Yep. They're worried about making payroll. The last thing they want to worry about is, are my employees able to plug in every day and do it safely?
Yeah. So what types of, let's talk about some of the bad and the ugly that we've seen. And I think, you've posted several stories over the last couple of weeks online about some of the bad and the ugly that we've seen from work from home. So what types of things, some of our guests aren't in IT, aren't IT providers, but those might be watching, what types of things do they need to think about? And what are some of the, kind of the horror stories that we're hearing out there that might not hit the front page of the news?
I think there are a couple of things, at least in what we've seen in our conversations and even some of this research we've been doing. And it's interesting because this spills over into a lot of the work we do is with the K-12 vertical with a lot of schools. And I think schools are facing some unique challenges. Number one is, in many cases, these employees are at home using personal devices. It looks like it's somewhere between 60 and 70% of these people don't have a corporate issued device that they went home with. So that, as a security professional, is a giant red flag right there. If you've lost the ability to even provide them with a device that you know is locked down and secure, what are they working on? How old is that system? How outdated is the OS? Has it ever been patched? Does it have a current antivirus installed? There are a lot of concerns just at that point, beyond considering lack of cybersecurity awareness and everything that goes with it. So number one is this issue of personal devices. And some of it isn't, we've got school districts that are waiting on $1 million POs of Chromebooks and laptops that they want to order but can't get their hands on now because of a massive shortage in hardware out there. So again, I think this points to an opportunity for MSPs to be able to step in to say, here's what we can do with these personal devices you're being forced to use. Here's what we can do to try to get them updated. But that right there, I think, is a number one red flag, followed close behind by the fact that our surveys show that most of these people working from home, or a large percentage of these people working from home, say they're not getting any type of IT support from their employer. So they're working on their own devices, and in many cases, they're providing their own security and providing their own IT support. It just seems like a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, it's just, I think about that. That was one of the things that we kind of got out of as an MSP was providing, residential technical support. How do you see that being reintroduced, and what types of, how do MSPs get back in front of that and possibly embrace that again? Especially given what you're talking about, somebody's, their kids are connecting on the same network with a unpatched old device that mom and dad are actually logging into corporate VPNs with, what types of things do you think MSPs need to do to educate their clients and potential clients?
To go to your first point, and we've had some really interesting conversations in the MSP community about this, is are MSPs prepared to go address this problem? Many maybe initially got into servicing, single individual homes or families, but abandoned that because they were fishing for bigger catch out there. Are they prepared to swallow their pride and admit that this is an opportunity, but it's going to mean maybe dealing with one household at a time, or cutting a contract with a company to support all of their employees working from home, and mapping out what that means and what kind of services can be delivered to somebody that's working from home. So I think a lot of that still has to be sorted out, and to some degree, I'm not sure everyone is even receptive to that being a part of their business plan. But I think it's a real need, and it's a matter of who is willing to do that work and find out a way to do it efficiently and economically.
Yeah, and I think if I'm an MSP and I'm sitting in that driver's seat of this, for me it would be about leading the conversation, is going back into your clients. As Pesach mentioned, he's going back into a second lockdown. And we may see that here in the Midwest. COVID's going right back up. We may see some of this over the winter as things escalate back up. But what methods do you see cutting edge MSPs doing to get in front of that narrative and to be able to talk about those things with their clients? Have you seen any? I guess what type of marketing, what type of education do you see MSPs doing for people right now?
It's not a new. Let me preface it by saying this isn't a new challenge. And as long as we've been dealing with MSPs, or I've been around the space, technical people tend to always have the challenge of how to communicate to those who aren't technical. And I think we continue to see that being a challenge for our MSPs. We have MSPs that want to talk about speeds and feeds, when right now is the perfect opportunity to break away from that and talk about business continuity, talk about things that are more real to, again, the SMB community, if knowing that that's the wheelhouse for a lot of MSPs. So I think those that are succeeding are breaking through that and breaking away from this need to talk about the technology and talk more about what this actually means to the business owner. I can give you examples of MSPs that have come to us asking us to help lead webinars. And we're more than happy to do that. But when we ask them what they want to cover and what the agenda looks like, it's basically a catalog of what's included in their security stack and describing the technology that's baked into their security stack. As a small, medium-sized business owner, heck, even as a superintendent of schools, that's the last thing I want to hear about are the nuts and bolts. Explain to me exactly how this is going to work, how efficient it's going to be, how it's going to be economical, and I'm not going to have to worry. So I think the MSPs that are succeeding right now are getting closer to that. And this isn't a new challenge, but I think it's just the reading of the room. Those that are able to do that right now are the ones that are stepping into this and succeeding.
And I think it's awesome because, that was one of the reasons that you and I reached out and connected, is I see what type of education you're doing. We got Matt Solomon and Dan Tomaszewski are on the call too. We've reconnected over this as well. And it's just a different methodology and a different approach because we may not be able to get physically in front of people. But that's what we talk about is being able to talk in the sense of what it means to a business owner. And I think, that's a problem we as techs have had for a long time, is we want to talk about the tech side of things. And like you said, unfortunately, people don't care. I mean, they don't care about the nuts and bolts of it. Is what does it mean? How does it save me money? And like you said, is how does it prevent me from the worry? And I think that's the narrative that's going back into their heads. People went back into the offices. Now we may have to go back to work from home again. So, do you see any MSPs doing anything besides webinars or any other type of thing that we might be able to help educate as a community to kind of make this message more resonate with business owners? What types of things can you think of?
I'm seeing some creative things out there. Unfortunately, I think everybody is kind of stuck in this webinar rut. And I hate to call it that because we do them and we're advocates for them. And in many cases, it's maybe the only option or easiest option for a lot of people. But I think the more organic these conversations can be, and how you accomplish that with the end user, whether it's a Zoom call or whatever it is, I think the more organic and educational you can be about your approach, the better off ultimately you're going to be from a sales perspective. One of the tips I heard along the way, and I've done a lot through the LinkedIn community and learned a lot, is get out there and educate, but don't lead to the solution. Don't lead with your solution, but lead to it. And you lead to it by educating and putting yourself out there as a thought leader and someone that knows what they're talking about. And people will respond to that. I think MSPs are fully capable of doing that if they're willing to devote the time to it. And we're talking 20, 30 minutes at the top of every day where you could knock this out, and it's not costly. I think we're seeing that, and there's a lot of people that are singing the same song about this is the approach to take, but we're seeing some really smart MSPs that are doing just that. They're putting themselves out there as thought leaders for their community, and people are responding to it.
Yeah, I've seen the same thing. That's, I started this show back in April for that reason, just because I think that there's so much. I kind of figured we would see what we're seeing right now in the MSP community. A lot of people are tired. They've worked, to the bone the last 6 months just to keep things afloat in their business, in their client's business, that now we're starting to kind of catch our breath a little bit, wait for that second wave. But that's how I've seen it. That's how I've seen people reach out to me because of the show that we do every week. And I think that, like you said, it doesn't take a whole lot. It just takes the time and effort to put into it. So what types of content do you think, what do you see as being resonating with people? Because I think just posting cybersecurity, whatever, like everybody else is, it kind of gets lost in the noise. But do you see anything kind of resonating that MSPs are having success with in particular when they're doing the different types of marketing?
Yeah, I think a couple of things. And like you said, there's no shortage of posts out there about the checklist of things that you should do. What I think the real shortage is out there, and we were guilty of it early on, when we had any number of chambers of commerce wanting us to present, and we did it like everybody has done it, and we presented our list to here are the 10 things you should be thinking about if you're working from home. What we quickly realized was, all right, people would embrace these checklists, but they were probably capable of executing on maybe half of the things that were on the checklist. So one of the things that we've been mindful of and trying to encourage our partners to do is take it the next step. Actually lay out the how-tos. If you're telling them they need to go update their router password, explain to them how they're supposed to go update their router password. If their ISP installed it, explain to them that they should call their ISP and their ISP can help walk through how to do that. It feels like too many people weren't taking that next step to provide a little more hand-holding and a little more how-to. And we've been able to present that in many cases where here's the how-to, here's how you can go do it yourself. But if you feel like you're in over your head, that's the perfect opportunity to turn to one of our MSP partners who can easily help you both in the short term and in the long term. But I just get the gut feeling that the checklists weren't ever enough. We even did a follow-up survey in our original work from home survey where we presented a typical checklist of here is the best practices for work from home. And we asked, and I think we got 4,000 or 5,000 responses out of this. Of this checklist, how many of these things would you feel comfortable doing? In the majority of cases, we're talking about maybe 40% of the people that responded said that they would be comfortable doing these things. And it bears itself out. Anecdotally, I've heard of MSPs out on the, we've got a friend out in California who just kind of proactively in April offered a free home security assessment. That was their lead in. That was their sales pitch. He walked in and 40% of the case, or I'm sorry, 30 to 40 cases right away. 90% of those cases, their router password was still admin or whatever the default password was, right? So again, we can tell these people what to do and suggest what the best practices are, but it's not happening. And that's where I think the role of the MSP is. Step in and deliver the how-to, lay it out there, and if they still can't do it themselves, that's where you're standing by as the swooping in to save the day, right?
That is an awesome tip. I mean, because I probably still have a box full of old routers, residential routers, sitting down in my basement. I think that's a great tip to be able to do. I just want to welcome Gabe to the show from New Orleans. Thanks for joining us today, Gabe. But yeah, I think just logging in, doing like this, either a live stream or a recorded webinar or just a video of some kind and showing people. I think that's probably, for me, if I'm sitting on the other end, just what you mentioned, if I'm not comfortable doing those things, YouTube's, that's where people are going. They're YouTube it, figure out how to do it. But why not be the YouTube for them? I think that's a great idea. Is just, plugging in, doing a screen share of your screen, log into a router. I've got old Linksys routers hanging out that people probably still have in their homes, and just walk them through the steps of how to do it. That's a phenomenal idea. Any other small tips like that you see? I think you and I touched on, like, just the password managers. Is just kind of recommending that. That's kind of that low-hanging fruit that we still find. Most people are got to have sticky notes all over the table for the different passwords to their sites. That might be
Absolutely.
something. Doing demos on passwords.
I think you're exactly right. I think password education, and I'm going to lean on some of these survey results because I think this paints the picture of how urgently this is needed. 78% of the people that responded to our survey said that while working from home, they'd received no additional cybersecurity awareness training. So, whether passwords are an element of that or how to spot a phishing attack is a part of that. Here's almost 80% of people that are working from home who their employer isn't giving them any additional awareness training at all. Whether you're selling it as an MSP or it's something you just simply want to offer up as a community service or a way to present yourself as a thought leader around it, these people are hungry for it. They know they're being preyed upon. They've seen the stories out there about how work from home is now home is now the attack vector of choice in many cases. They want to arm themselves. In many cases, you have parents that want to better educate themselves about how to create a safe remote learning environment for their kids. But again, they're being handed checklists of things that they have no idea how to go execute on. So the more we can do to do some hand-holding or even dive into the awareness side of things and do a 30-minute a webinar on the best practices for how to spot a phishing attack. Or talk about, vishing or the voicemail stuff that's out there now. Anything like that, I think, would be more than welcomed because they're not getting it from their employers. And many of those employers were just pushed into doing this as quick as they possibly could, and the security parts of it were an afterthought. So,
yeah. And I think it's kind of a tough sell to an employer to try to go in and sell them on that education. Especially when they've got to figure out the hardware, the software, the VPN. They got to figure out the expense of all of that, and potentially be putting those things into place. The education is probably the last thing they're thinking about. But I think you touched on a critical point. I think that's where you start with. If their end users can be more educated, that makes everything about being an MSP much easier. Because the last thing that I want is those hair on fire calls because somebody's got ransomware or somebody's, introduced a virus into the network. So I think that's again probably one of those. If I'm an MSP, that's what I would be doing right now. Offer the education for free because that will come back and benefit. It benefits all of us if everybody's doing that. If everybody's offering those simple educational things for free, what do they say? Incoming tides raise all boats. I don't know how that phrase goes, but I think that's where we as a community, I talked about it with Juan Fernandez last week, we have the ability as a community now, as an MSP and IT community, to change the narrative of how we're viewed going forward. And that's how we do it. That we take that front seat, we take the driver's seat, grab the bull by the horns, and lead. That's the first place we lead, is through education. And end users, definitely that still presents the worst case scenario for us if I'm an MSP. That now it's not just the office that could get hacked. It's the 50 different networks from people logging at home in 50 different places. So you provide resources, on the vendor side. I see, a lot of vendors getting involved with that. Any other? That to me is probably the biggest takeaway if I'm an MSP. Is just the how-to videos, very simple how-to videos that you can do from your phone. We have the tech to be able to do it. And again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Done is better than perfect. It's just about, getting out in front. So Matt says preach. So he couldn't agree more. So
yeah, and the other thing we've had some success with, and we've been playing around with, is short form video. It doesn't have to be an hour-long webinar.
Yep.
Heck, I've seen some really good webinars that are done in 15 or 20 minutes. I've seen some people that are having a lot of luck repurposing vendor content, and it's 5 minutes long, and they're able to share that through newsletters or through LinkedIn or whatever the case is. It's not like you have to produce a 3-day event, right? Yep. It's something that can be very simple, that's not going to take a lot of time. And I think going back to the need for the education being a part of this, and whether it's part of your comprehensive approach or bundle that you're offering or not, it's like, the godfather of MSPs, Gary Pica, talks about his chocolate cake analogy. Anybody can go to the store and buy the ingredients to make a chocolate cake. I'm going to go to the bakery that makes the best chocolate cake, so I don't have to. As an MSP, are we actually making chocolate cakes, or are we just presenting this list of ingredients for people to put together themselves? So I think now is the time more than ever. Great, let's step up and show that we've got a comprehensive solution that goes from education through helping out putting the appropriate policies in place. That's another thing that I think is maybe an opportunity, and I don't claim to be smart enough to know how to position it. But I think in many of these cases, these employers are going to have to rewrite employee handbooks about work from home and where tech support stops and starts if you're using a personal device at home, or what the expectation of an employee, if they're working from home, what is your expectation as an employer of what that employee is going to provide security-wise, and what kind of security are they going to put in place on the networks they're logging into. So I think, again, the more comprehensive MSPs can be, I think the better it will be received, because these guys don't want to have to piecemeal and figure it out on their own. They just want to know it works. Yep. They don't want to know how the sausage is made, right? We're going back to that. So.
I don't want that visual in my head permanently.
Right.
So. I'll take the chocolate cake though. But yeah, I'd go buy it. Mine would taste like crap. So, But I think that's what I'm seeing too, and that's why you and I connected. Is the vendors are providing content, and I think that's the first step, and I think that's awesome. It's going to be about helping the MSPs actually do the implementation. And then that's where a lot of people get stuck. They think that it has to be perfect and that you have to broadcast Pete McKinnon style videos and they've got to be engaging and cinematic, and they don't. Gabe just made the comment he needs to get into video mode. Because I don't know about you, it's just that's where it resonates for me. If I can see it and I can see the person that I'm doing business with, that it's much easier to develop those relationships when we can see people. And I think, it doesn't matter if people are customers or not. If you're seen as the educator and people are going to you for that education, when we come out on the other side of this, who do you think they're going to call? It's those people that help them, during the worst time that we've seen. in decades. And I think that's super important. So any other tips that you can think of besides that an MSP, I mean, those two right there, I think is golden, is being able to take the content that your vendors, I think everybody's willing to produce some pretty good content, but it's taking that, putting your own twist on it as an MSP, and being able to educate from your perspective, making it your own, I think is going to be super important. So do you see that changing? Do you see video being more important for an MSP than ever?
I think so, and this isn't anything new. As recently as this morning, our CEO and sat down and we had a conversation about, we wiped out 45, 50 trade shows virtually overnight that we were going to participate in as a vendor. And we took a lot of pride in being able to get out there and be face to face and make a lot of customer visits. And now that that's gone, what can you do to potentially personalize? And whether it's a video chat, if it's more video content that you're creating, we're actively looking at how can we personalize the experience, even of just visiting our webpage, and the ways that customers can potentially engage with us and engaging with us the way they want to engage with us. I think there's a whole a challenge there of exploring how to personalize things now that we can't be face to face, and when that comes back, it'll be a great day. But until then, you've got to figure out a way to do that, and I think video's pretty key to it. But back to your point you made, Andrew, about the need to really engage with these people and develop a personal relationship and what that means. A side note that I always throw out there about my career back at Gateway, at one point our mission statement, which was on every box, I think, at one point at Gateway, was you've got a friend in the business.
Yep.
And that really meant something to these people that in some cases, and I was in sales at the time, people were waiting on hold for hours, 50 and 60 people deep to place an order for a $5,000 PC back then.
Yep.
And they weren't just doing it because they wanted to have some great technology that they didn't really understand. They wanted to be on the cutting edge, but they wanted somebody to feel like they had a friend that was going to walk them through how to do it. And Gateway went out of its way to market the fact that we were going to be that friend that showed them the way through new technology. And it worked. And it came off to some people as hokey and a little homespun or whatever you want to call it, but it really worked because when I picked up that phone, people thought they were talking to a friend who could walk them through technology. I think it's easily translatable now to where we are as a society and the roles MSPs can play, especially for small business owners. This is your chance to step up and be that friend that this man, woman, whoever owns the business can rely on to get them through the technology they're going to need so they can keep the business going. They really need that friend. They need that friend that is that they can trust through this. And the more you can build that relationship, whether it's offering free education or conducting free training for their employees or whatever form that takes, I think it's going to get you much further down the road beyond just what it's going to mean for sustaining your business now.
Yeah. So if you're any MSPs listening to that, I would totally steal that concept and that marketing of being the friend in the business. I would totally swipe that. So
yeah, I don't think Gateway ever trademarked it, so I'd say everybody should just take it.
Why not?
Yeah.
I mean, we just think about, how much better things get if everybody's out there educating. If everybody's doing, weekly seminars on, educating people. And again, it's whatever form that it takes, but it's about leading with being able to protect everybody, even if they're not a customer. And that's where I've found. And Gabe agrees that websites have been in the background. Again, they're coming about refocused. That's where people are going. The two places that people are going first to check out an MSP is their LinkedIn profile, and then they're probably going there and their website first. And everything else about whether or not they want to progress and take the next step with you, what is on those two places and what's found in those two places speaks volumes. And if it's all technical speak and it's all sales speak, to me that's a complete turnoff. But those people who are just what you said, if that's my narrative, or I want to be a friend in the business, we want to be the friend that helps walk you through this tough time from a technology perspective so that you can continue to grow on the other side of this. That would definitely be the narrative that I would be spinning around everything we do. That would be all over my LinkedIn profile. And again, this is the tough part. The LinkedIn, most IT folks are introverts. They don't like to sell. But I think you can do a lot just by telling that narrative, telling that story on your LinkedIn profile and on your website. And I think having people, them being able to see real people is also important. They want to know, are you helping customers through this that look like me? And, you can have those things on your LinkedIn profile, have those things on your website. Those, I think, mean more than ever now, because people are taking the time. I think they're taking longer in their evaluation of who they might switch to if they're looking at switching IT providers too. But I think that's some gold stuff right there, Corey, for sure.
I don't think you can overlook the value of putting yourself out there, and that's one of the things we encourage all of our team members to do is get out there on LinkedIn. We don't expect you to be out there advertising, our product on a daily basis, but you can be out there educating and offering your 2 cents. And if people associate that with us as a brand, so be it. That's what we would like to be known, that our employees are at least allowed to go make that effort. There's no reason any MSP couldn't do the same or insist on the same of all their employees, that everybody's got an up-to-date LinkedIn account, and it's all of your email signatures include a link to it so people can see you. They can engage with you on a somewhat personal level before they even decide if they want to do business with you. But the more you hide behind that, the more you hide behind stock photos on your website, the more artificial you come off as, and less likely to be that friend that they're looking to trust.
Yeah, because it screams when they see stock photos of 20-something millennials, and that's not who you're servicing. That's not who they see show up to do the tech support or jump on a video chat call. Yeah, it's super disingenuous. So Gabe said, "Yep, great to be a friend. Sometimes simple ideas are the best."
You got it.
And that for me, that's what I did. I've been in the IT channel, as long as you have. We saw, the dot-com bust, the 2001 recession, the 2008 recession. I was running a full MSP in 2008, and that's what I did. Is we didn't lose any customers during that period of time, but it wasn't monumental growth. But that's when I took the time to get good at the things that I knew we weren't good at, and to learn new things, to level up my sales, level up my marketing, and that's when we changed from being just a tech company. Because I was like everybody else, I relied strictly on referrals, and we changed everything we did. I started doing quarterly lunch and learn, in-person lunch and learn events. And those were huge because, again, it's the same concept of doing this virtually now. We can't do it in person, but you can do the exact same thing. Is people want to see people. They want to feel that energy. They want to be able to trust the person that they're investing, possibly hundreds of thousands of dollars with their IT contracts. And I think it's super easy to do that now. We can do that from the comfort of our homes. Again, another benefit of working from home if I'm an MSP. Any other, tips or tricks or, advice that you would give to an MSP right now, or anything that you see coming down the pike that might be further opportunities for an MSP?
Yeah, I'd say a lot of the conversations we're having these days are from MSPs that are kind of taking this as an opportunity not to only reevaluate how they're going to market or present themselves, but they're taking the opportunity to kind of reevaluate the tools they're using, whether we're talking about the RMM solution that they've implemented or even diving into our space. What does their security stack look like? Are they overpaying for tools that they're not getting the most out of, that aren't efficient, that require an extra employee just to run it because it's so overwhelming? Are you overlooking some basic blocking and tackling from a security perspective that you could be including in your stack that wouldn't cost you much, that would actually be a best practice? That's where we're having a lot of conversations right now. It seems like some of these MSPs are taking this as an opportunity to rework that. And it's not only helping them from an economic standpoint, from a good business plan standpoint, but ultimately it's going to help them to deliver better service to their end customers. I mean, our CEO talks about every time he opens up his Twitter feed and sees another story about another ransomware attack, it's just more proof that the security that's out there is getting beat every single day. And we continue to implement the same security solutions over and over again. And in some cases, we're investing even more into them, and they're not stopping anything. So are we overlooking something that's simple? We've got solutions that we feel like fit into that category of simple that are being overlooked. But I think I encourage all MSPs, whether you're considering looking at us as a security solution or not, now's a good time to step back and say, is what I've put together makes sense for me as a business owner, but also doesn't make sense in terms of what I'm trying to accomplish for my end customers too.
So you kind of touched on that too. I think reevaluating business models, partnerships. We talked a little bit about it before we went live today. I mean, where do you see the MSP market going in the next 3 to 6 months? As far as, what we potentially could see. I'm not about preaching gloom and doom and all that stuff, but I think it's just the reality of what we're seeing. And where do you see things going in the next 3 to 6 months?
I think there's a couple things, and like I follow the Jay McBains of the world, and I understand what they're forecasting, and it's not pretty. But if you follow Jay pretty closely, he talks about the one glimmer of hope there is security. Security is going to continue to be a really, really important part of MSP business, and those MSPs that are strong security plays are gonna fare very well. So I think that's. Selfishly speaking, I think that that's very true, and we're obviously investing heavily into making sure our MSPs can weather that. I think the other thing, and we talked about it, before going live, Andrew, is you've got ultimately what is going to be a lot of churn within the space over the next few months. I think you've got some MSPs that are very well positioned to accelerate, and in some cases go out and acquire other MSPs. You've got other MSPs that have never had to weather this kind of economic storm that probably will not survive. And it's going to be this either eat or be eaten kind of scenario, I'm afraid, for the foreseeable future. And the churn, I think, is going to be very real. It's just what side of the churn you're going to be on.
Yeah, I think so too. I think, what you and I talked about before we went live was, I think we'll see that in full force in the first quarter of next year. I think we'll really start to see some of that here in the fourth quarter, but I think it will escalate going into the first quarter. So I've talked about that on previous episodes as well. I think it's a time to evaluate. That's where I was, selling my IT business, is just evaluating what was necessary for me at that time. And that was what was necessary, to sell my IT business, focus on my family, do something different. And I think that there's no downside for that. I think that so many of the gurus in multiple spaces, but even in the IT space, that preach that, you've got to be scaling, you got to be growing, you got to be doing, it's just living up to an expectation of what someone else says that you should be. So I think if you're a small partner, right now, your small MSP is to look at that as an option of partnering with other MSPs, of combining forces. Because I think the last thing that any of us want is to have to close the doors on our business, because who's ultimately going to lose out in that? I think it's the customers are going to lose out in that if we have to shut our doors. So I think it's just kind of, taking the reasonable expectations right now. If that's where you're at, right, there's no shame in doing that. And I think there's no shame in combining forces to make sure that your customers are taken care of. And again, if that's something that you're interested in, I'm sure Corey and other in the market know people that might be a good fit with combining forces. Again, all of that's to the benefit of us as owners, but also benefits the market. It benefits our customers, I think so.
Yeah,
Any other
Andrew,
tips? Go ahead.
I would say let's not overlook the willingness of vendors like us that are willing to step up and help at this point. Many vendors are in a unique situation where, like us, the trade show calendar was cleared out, budgets, kind of fell apart, and they're looking at allocating marketing dollars and figuring out new ways to engage with partners that normally it would have been, at the hotel bar in Vegas,
Yep.
right? All that's gone. So these vendors are out there looking for new creative ways to both engage with partners, but also to help those partners continue to grow. And you've lost a lot of that kind of face-to-face opportunity. I think you've got vendors that are very, very anxious and hungry to have conversations with their partners about what they can do to help. It's kind of cliche because you probably get that email every month from, hey, why aren't you selling more, or what can we do to help you grow? But I think it's like no other point that I've ever witnessed in terms of vendors are very willing to get creative and do some things to engage directly with their partners and to help them through this. So I don't hesitate to get on your vendor reps and ask them for help and see what they can do to assist.
Awesome. No, that's a great tip. And again, I know we've got some other MSP vendors that are watching this live right now and watching it after the fact. So if there's something that I can do to kind of help from that perspective as well, please feel free to reach out, Corey, as well. If there's something that we can help, just put people in touch, even if they're not customers. I think it benefits us as an industry to help each other right now. Because the last thing, I think that's what's kept everything going, is the fact that IT's been the Superman of COVID, I think, in all of this. Without that ability to work from home and what many partners across the world have done, I think the results of 2020 would be much worse if a lot of MSPs and IT partners hadn't stepped up. So, cool.
I think you're right. There's a lot of goodwill, and it's time to play off of that goodwill, too.
Yeah. Any other parting shots or parting advice? I know we're coming up on the top of the hour. I just want to be respectful of your time.
No, I'd say, you know what, I'm a big LinkedIn guy, so I'd love to engage with any of your community out there. I talk a lot about what's going on in the channel, a lot about what's going in the cybersecurity space. So I love having those conversations, and it's not me trying to reel you in to give you some sort of sales pitch. We truly want to engage with the community out there, and that's what I've been given the green light to do, and that's what I do on a daily basis. So everybody and anybody, love to engage further.
So I posted that, if you can see it on the screen, but I've also posted it in the show notes. So if you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, or Facebook, it's in the show notes. So please reach out and connect with Corey. I'm glad that I did. I'm glad that, through that education, through that camaraderie that we is, I think, finally taking hold in the IT space, that's where you and I were able to connect. And I'm glad we did. I'm glad to have you on the show. So if you appreciated this show, I just wanted to give Corey a shout out. Thank you so much for being our guest today and taking out the time. I really, really appreciate it. And again, if you reach out to Corey, if there's any other questions that you have for him, please reach out to him. So thanks again, Corey, for being on the show. We really, really appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Andrew. I enjoyed it.
All right. Talk to you soon. So thanks for hanging out with me. That will end our show this week. I think it's an important topic. I'm glad we were able to have Corey on the show today. Man, did he give away some tips of gold if you're in the IT channel, both from a vendor perspective, but from an MSP perspective. I mean, I think that's absolute gold that he gave away. So please, if you like this episode, please like and share this, because I think, it's so important. Again, I talked about it last week on our show, that we have the chance to change the narrative in the IT space right now, and we have the chance to lead the discussion. We have the chance to be the savior of business right now. And man, I can't believe that the opportunity is here. And it's will we take the bull by the horns and grab that? So, Gabe, we appreciate you being on the show. Let me move this down. So he's clapping virtually for us today. So we very much appreciate return guests on the show. Same with Robert from the UK. Again, just tons of gold. So if you're an MSP, I'd go back and watch this multiple times, because I think there's a ton of information that if I'm an MSP, of being able to change your business, especially from what he sees and what we see vendors being able to see on a global basis, ways of being able to help the channel. So Bob, thank you for hanging out. And again, we're so appreciative of taking the time to be able to watch this show. And again, I'm dedicated to the education of not just the IT channel, but business in general. And that's what this show is completely about, is raising the bar and doing what is absolutely necessary. And to stop listening to what gurus say, stop listening to what somebody else says that your life and that your business should be all about. And it is about doing what is absolutely necessary for you. And this is the Do What Is Necessary live stream. We come to you live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. And thank you so much for those of you who joined us live. And if you're watching this in the replay, please let me know, how we might be able to help. And, the best tips and tricks that you got from the show, post those in the comments as well. If there's anything that you're going to take forward and implement in your business, I'm always curious to be able to help you do that and actually execute on some of the ideas that Corey gave us today. So thanks again. This is Andrew Moon, Orange Nomad, the founder of Orange Nomad and lover of all things technology, business, and work-life management. Thanks again for tuning in. This is the Do What Is Necessary live stream, and I hope to see you all next week. Talk to you soon.